armor and bladesmith Sir Niccolo D'Angelo. And featuring a live performance by the Honorable Lady Aibhilin Daibhidh from the Kingdom of Trimaris. Why me? It's just regular old Bjorn of the Northern Sea, your announcer. And here's your host, Master Laertes McBride.
Greetings and good evening, everyone. I hope you've had a good week. Welcome to the show. We're going to have a great show tonight with some really interesting and fun stuff. But before we get started, one of the things I want to say is for people in Caid, normally this would be the week we're getting ready, or I've already been out to Great Western War and getting ready to celebrate our friends, test our skills, share our parting skills, have some food, and sit through a really long court. But I know that because of what's transpired this year, we had to postpone it. But I want to urge everyone to get out there, get on your social media, call your friends. You don't have to post. Call your friends, chat with them, reconnect. Take the opportunity of what this would be our biggest event, or one of the biggest events for the kingdom during the year, to go back out and reconnect, be with your friends, and try to find that little replacement of what the big fun that we would be having this coming weekend. But I know it'll be back even bigger and better next year. So I can't wait to see what the war stewards put together for that. And with that, speaking of hanging out with friends, let's go ahead and bring in Bjorn. He'll be here in just a moment. And here he is. Hey, Bjorn.
Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm enjoying not packing my car right now. But other than that,
yeah, I know. I do miss. That's, as a bard, it's one of the things about war that's the greatest. I mean, you and I both, as fighters, to go out onto the field and do those great things during the day, but in the evening to spend time around various fire pits. And of course, I mean, last year, our Match the Peers game, being able to have that kind of fun. Entertainment is just what wars are all about. Right. And so it's definitely something that we're missing, a lot of us. But I know that once we're all able to see each other again safely, that wars are maybe going to take an even larger part of our hearts when the time comes.
That's true. So you know what? But let's make the best of what we have right now and share the time. So what do you have for us this week when it comes to arts and sciences?
So I have two things to talk about really quick, and then a brief little announcement after that. The first thing I wanted to talk about is this is more of a let's live vicariously through the internet kind of a thing. So on lonelyplanet.com, there is a top 10 list, and it is the 10 hidden gems of Europe. And on this particular website, they talk about the Castle Satvia in Germany. They talk about Battle, England. They talk about Amiens in France. There's a bunch of different places that they talk about that aren't Paris, that aren't Berlin, that aren't London. Places for you to go to when we're actually able to start traveling again. Now, normally this might be almost a bit of masochism, and forgive me if there are kids in the room. If that's your thing, cool. Otherwise, sorry. But on the other hand, a lot of these places also have fantastic websites for you to peruse. For example, when we're talking about the Burg of Satzwey in Germany, they have virtual walkthroughs of the castle. They have history. They have lots of pictures of various aspects of the castle in various times of the year. Remember, kids, in Germany, they have seasons. So it's kind of really pretty. I think it's a wonderful thing for you to take a look at for a couple of reasons. Number one, things aren't on fire there. It's always nice to kind of look vicariously at other things and go, oh, wow, they're not on fire. Also, it is kind of a, when this is over, I want to make a list of things to do. I have been talking to a lot of folks in the arts and sciences community and in the SCA in general, and they have started to seriously re-up their bucket lists. And although many of us have been very fortunate to travel, not all of us have. And this is one of those ways where you're like, you know what? If I ever get out of this, I'm going to go to Salzburg, or I'm going to go to Paris. And this particular website is sort of you might want to try some of these places because they are a little bit off the beaten path, but there are some beautiful medieval and Renaissance gems that you can look at. The second thing I wanted to talk about is something called the World Hoard. Now, that is just Old English for word hoard, world word hoard. It's kind of a double entendre. Years ago, there was a professor at the University of Oxford who thought it would be a really, really neat idea if a lot of the scholars, both those that were paid to do so and a lot of the amateur scholars that exist all across the world, and try and get together all of the Anglo-Saxon documentation that could be found extant. And the great thing about it is more became extant or available as people continued to look. And all of this was digitized and placed online on the World Hoard. And that's exactly what it says it is. Do you want to see more than one particular version of Beowulf? It's there. If you want to take a look at simple things like how did this portion of the Anglo-Saxon peoples say roof versus how did these people say roof, if it was thatched versus not, you can get that detailed. Or much more broadly, what was the word for bread here? What was the word for bread there? And it is a wonderful resource if that is your specialty. And admittedly, it is something that is truly finite. It's something that only affects a certain group of folks. But since we went from what would all of us dream about maybe when this is all over to what a specific set of folks want to think about, that's what we have for this second one. I recommend wholeheartedly that you give it a look. If you have any interest in the Anglo-Saxon language, if you have any interest in any of that research, please give it a look. There are some real gems there. And even if you're not a diehard dedicated person, if you have any oblique or tangential interest in some of the costuming or, have you ever wanted to read anything about Beowulf? This is a good place. The last thing I wanted to talk about briefly was something that I noticed last night. Now, a lot of us, not all of us, but many of us, if we don't watch Last Week Tonight on HBO, then perhaps we catch it the following morning on YouTube. One of the things that Mr. Oliver talked about was museums, in particular, museums in the United States. It is estimated that if things continue the way the pandemic is going at this current level, that perhaps as many as 1/3 of all American museums will close. Documentation is a little more sketchy for how that will be worldwide because, weirdly enough, other places in the world seem to have a little bit more concern about their history than maybe some of us folks do here, possibly. Regardless, many of the museums that currently exist in the United States, a majority of their budget, over 50% of their budget, usually comes from in-person sales, people who purchase tickets, people who go and get a monthly pass or even a yearly pass. And obviously, since so many of them are closed, they are suffering dreadfully. Now, the way that they decided to handle it Last Week Tonight, it's not really the way folks in the SCA could handle it. I recommend you watch it. But if you have any way that you can possibly help, there are places that have trusts, places like the Getty, places like the Huntington, that are probably a little better off. But maybe there are some that aren't quite as well off. And if you have the ability to assist them with a donation or see if there's anything else that you might be able to do, then I please recommend that you do so. Because we are people that study the past. We try to recreate various aspects of the past and even be living historians. But we can't do that if the history dies. So I recommend wholeheartedly, if it is something that you are able to do, try and assist your museums here in the States. So that's what we're going to talk about this week, and hope that you enjoyed it.
That's great. I'm really encouraging people to help support their local museums.
I have to say that the thing that Mr. Oliver had planned to do for Last Week Tonight was they were going to send some of their special paintings to be seen, and they would make $10,000 donations to the museum and $10,000 donations to a local food bank near that museum. But I'm not really sure that any of the areas around here would maybe want those paintings, but who knows?
Right. And then, like you were saying, for Beowulf, seeing all the different options, I'd give a arm and a leg for a good Beowulf story. You're welcome.
And you know what? The folks that haven't read it, they're not going to get the joke. So you have to read it to know just how witty Laertes was attempting to be.
So, speaking of witty, who's our first guest this evening?
We have Sir Niccolo d'Angelo, also of the Laurel of Caid. He is a excellent armorer and swordsmith, and just an amazing. Well, he is a man of the forge. I don't know what else. I don't know how else to say it.
Great. Well, we'll have you just listen, and let's go ahead and bring him in, and he will be here in just 1 second. Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Hello.
Oh, I can. Hey, so how are you doing?
I'm doing well.
So, tell us where we're at in your house right now.
We're in the shop. Well, it's my garage. This is where I make all the weird stuff that I do. I have gear for making armor and weapons, from high tech with a plasma cutter to just beating on stuff on an anvil. So, what were we thinking about today? I was thinking of making, doing forge welding, maybe a little bit, demonstration of making some Damascus.
Let's go out and look at the forge. Forge is outside, right?
Well, so the shop, I have from plasma tables to a bunch of different air hammers and forging presses to just your anvils and junk. But when we get out here, it's dark. It's going to take me a little second to get this lit. So give me 1 second. So lighting the forge.
Nice. Hold on.
And it's gonna take a minute or two to get hot. So while that's heating up, I'm gonna take you back inside, and we'll take a look at some of the components of Damascus steel. So basically, making Damascus steel is kind of like making a cake. You have to have your recipe right. And what we do today is mostly pattern welded steel. It's not true Damascus. So I will take a combination of two good steels, a 1084 and a 15N20. Both of these steels by themselves are great for making knives. But the 15N20 has a bit of nickel in it. So when you do an acid etch, it resists the acid etch, and that's the patterns that you see. So I'll take this, I'll clean it up, and I'll electrically weld it in a stack of about, this is about 20 layers. So I'm going to take this stack of 20 layers, I'm going to get it really, really hot. I'm going to use some kerosene as flux to keep any oxidation for any carbon to grow between the pieces, so it'll forge well together at temperature. Then we'll usually draw that out, and I'll cut that into a bunch of pieces. Like, here's some cut ends of a bunch of 20-piece stacks, and weld those together to make a 100-layer building. So this still takes a minute. So I'm going to go drop this in some kerosene.
So how hot does the forge get? Oh, you can't hear me over the forge.
So soaking my billet in kerosene is going to keep any kind of oxidation from the forge from growing.
Now my teenage boy is going fire. Ooh, good.
It's really hard to hear you. It's kind of like a jet engine while the forge is running. This is going to take a few minutes for it to get hot. You can take a look at. That's going to be fun for your viewers. Sorry about that. So I do a lot of weird stuff, from making armor to weapons.
So how hot does the forge get?
This forge will get to just under 3,000 degrees.
Oh, I
Now
mean,
we
if it
want to
doesn't hit
get
3,000 degrees, why use it, right?
right? Well, I needed to get hot enough so with just heat and pressure, I can make several pieces of metal into a solid billet. So it's really just the trick with everything. It's heat and pressure, and hit it a lot with a hammer.
So how did you get started into armor making and bladesmithing?
Well, that's a good question. When I first found the SCA, I was dating a belly dancer, and the first event I went to was, I think, Sven's second crown. I saw them fighting, and I went home and I bought all the armor I could off of eBay and a bunch of junk. After a little bit, I made friends with another armorer that doesn't play here in Caid, and finally just got so mad at him, decided to make my own stuff. So that's pretty much the trail of armor making and weapons, is if you get mad at somebody enough, then it'll drive you to make your own stuff.
So you just learned by doing, right?
Huh?
You learned by doing?
Yeah, I'm self-taught. YouTube is a fantastic resource for learning how to do anything. Eric Dubé, I really highly recommend all of his videos on YouTube. It's really where I got the most information starting out on how to make armor. For knives, it was kind of a new thing for me. My squire, Mike Murphy, is pretty great at knife making, and he was the one that first encouraged me to make knives. And then I got called to be on TV for Forged in Fire, and ever since then it's been just a whole lot of swords.
So didn't you just do a sword of state for a principality?
I made the new sword of state for the Kingdom of Caid, and I just finished a new sword of state for the Principality of Insulae Draconis in Drachenwald.
Right.
And I think it's England, Iceland, Scotland. I'm not exactly sure their entire territory, but our good friend Sir Avery is their fearless leader at the moment.
Yeah, we had the opportunity to speak with him just a few weeks ago. So if you haven't seen that episode, check it out. But yeah, the Caid sort of state is amazing. I had the opportunity to see it up close at Coronation, so many months ago. But yeah, it's fantastic. Oh my gosh. How long did that take you to forge and produce?
The Sword of State was really a project of passion. It was many, many hours, and not just my work. Duke John did great work in chasing the coins that were set. And just really, really, really did fantastic work. But I think all in all, there's at least 100 hours into the Sword of State.
And then you mentioned you were forged with fire. How was that experience? Did they reach out to you? Did you audition for them? How did you get on Forged with Fire?
I'm sorry, I still couldn't hear what you said.
Oh, I was just wondering how you got on Forged with Fire. Did they reach out to you, or
I was. They found me through Facebook because I post pictures of armor and the weird shit that I make in the shop. And from then I was approached. They asked me if I knew how to make knives, and I kind of lied to them and said yes. And in the 3 or 4 months that I had between the time that they asked me and I had to go on, I made a knife every day. So, I think there's over 100 knives from the time that they asked me to the time that I went on.
Wow. So was it a good experience for you, or
it was a fantastic experience. I really loved every minute of it. I would really love to do it again. And I encourage anybody who has a chance. It was really fantastic. A great experience.
Well, great. So, do you have any pieces around your shop that you can show us right quick?
So I don't usually do fantasy weapons, but I just finished some fantasy weapons from the game God of War. I finished the Blades of Chaos. And these things are freaking ridiculous. But this is just for fun. I thought I got a kick out of it. You know, kind of my, not really my thing, but this was a blast to me.
Well, will those be legal for Crown Tourney finals?
What was that?
Will those be legal for the next Crown Tourney?
No, I think they'd get pretty mad at me. And I think I would probably just hurt myself more than I would hurt my opponent.
Well, you know, I know the Kingdom of Marshall. I can put in a word for you.
Thank you very much. I think someone's going to get mad at me.
So
I want to go ahead real quick and let's check our steel to see if it's ready to go in the forge or in the press. Because I think we're probably... Nope, we're not ready. It's still going to be a minute. Sorry about that. In the meantime, I have some other projects that I have finished that I'd like to show you. We probably have a few more minutes.
sure,
The press will be ready.
sure. Let's see what you got.
Let's go look in the backyard, see if it's light enough. I have some other weapons there. I'm gonna probably disappear into the dark here in a minute.
This is like every horror film ever.
It's like, I know. Sorry, it's
There's
a lot
someone
darker
in the
than I thought.
backyard with a sword.
Let me see how I can do this where it's not so dark. Here's a sword I finished for Forge and Fire. I don't know if anybody can see it. It's kind of dark out here.
Yeah, it's a
And
little
this is a
dark.
pumpkin, and it kills pumpkins really well. I think I could probably take a few pumpkins at once. Let's see, Nodachi versus pumpkin. Well, my aim isn't very good.
Ooh.
And this is the latest. It's a giant 16th century inspired falcon. I don't know if it may be a little too dark, but it kills stuff really well.
That's oddly very satisfying to see. Oh, nice.
I don't know if you can see any of that. It's quite dark.
It's a little silhouetted, but you see the end result.
Sorry about that, you guys. I would have liked that too.
Oh.
Don't have very much light out here. Is that I don't know if that's a better angle.
I was just going to
to.
That's a little bit better.
Is Sir Niccolo the Pumpkin King now?
Let's see. Oh. That is so sweet.
It's a lot more satisfying.
It's supposed to be satisfying to make something that's so destructive, right?
It's a lot more satisfying than like an arming sword. Isn't nearly as fun. But it still does the job.
Oh my gosh. You know what? I'm out of my gourd with happiness. So. Oh, don't laugh. It only encourages me. Oh, that's awesome. Can we see, since you're under the light, can we see the swords a little bit better under the light?
Sure. Yeah, I'm sorry. My
that's
lighting
okay.
isn't so great. This was the Nodachi that I lost Forge and Fire with.
Oh.
So, but it really kills pumpkins really well, and just about everything else.
It's Halloween, and you never know when the great pumpkin is going to come.
Right?
And then
this is the giant two-handed falchion that was inspired by Ugo Serrano. This thing just destroys basically everything it hits. It's pretty amazing, but I don't know. It was fun. This is your basic 14th century arming sword. The one thing that makes it kind of special is I was gifted a couple of coil springs from a Lamborghini, I think Murcielago, and the blade is made from a Lamborghini spring.
Well, it looks very sporty.
So
That's pretty amazing. Now, how much time did you have to make the sword on Forged with Fire?
So they tell you it's 5 days, but it's really 40 hours.
Oh, okay.
So you have 40 hours of work, basically. And it's also filled with interviews and all of that. So maybe 32 to 35 hours of actual work time.
Wow.
So
wow. Now, do you bring those to events so people can see them, or they just hang around your house, or what do you do?
Mostly they sit over my mantle and collect dust. I had to actually wipe the pig blood off of that sword because I hadn't touched it since Forged in Fire.
Oh, okay. I was going to you have pig problems around the house?
But let's go see if there's any heat in that forge yet. All right, we're getting close to the temperature that I want to see when it comes to making Damascus. Let me grab my gloves and we'll take a look.
Laertes, if you could ask him, is it the color that he's looking for? How does he know by sight that it's getting to the correct temperature?
Yeah, I'll ask him once we get away from the forge. I was going to ask the same thing. That's what my stomach looks like after I eat Indian food, by the way.
So right now, I'm just at about the right forging temperature. What I'm looking for is a really nice, consistent yellow color all the way through. We're just about there. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on the press. It's going to make it a little loud and probably hard for anybody else to hear me. And we're going to go ahead and crush this thing into a billet.
See, I really think he needs little pumpkins to put inside the hydraulic press, too.
So that first weld is small. You just want to make a small impression. If I push it too much, it can break the weld and separate the back of the billet, and I can get inclusions. So I do a little press just to set the weld on both sides, get it back into the fire so I don't lose much heat, and then I'm going to do a big press now and really crush the billet together.
So
We're going to give it a few more seconds, get this nice and hot. Make sure we can all right. So at this point, I'm just going to continue to get it hot and press and repeat and draw the billet out until it's about 20 inches long. Once I get it about 20 inches long, I'll cut it into 5 pieces and then stack it back up and weld it again. That'll give me 100 layers. I'll do the same exact process again, cut it into 3 pieces, restack it and weld it, and that's how you get a 300 layer billet.
Wow, that's fascinating. So, someone asked, I didn't ask, but considering what you work with and the temperatures and everything, have you ever had any mishaps?
I light myself on fire constantly. My wife jokes about it all the time. Yeah, it's a thing. It's a thing in my shop. I've only had to like stop, drop, and roll once or twice, but there's always like, you know, you're always catching on fire.
But you still have eyebrows, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, you learn to keep your face away from the fire, but there's sparks, there's heat, I mean, everything is dangerous in the shop.
So if you had to choose one thing you were happiest and proudest that you've produced, what would it be?
That's a tough one. Probably the sword estate for Caid. That is probably the thing that I am the most proud of and has more of my heart and passion in than anything else that I've ever made.
And what was I think you mentioned it, but what was the very first thing that you produced?
The very first thing that I made? Oh my God, I'm not telling you guys or showing anybody. It's absolutely terrible, horrible, and I think I've cut it up and thrown it away years ago. I have a problem. Yeah, I'm not showing anybody anything.
Well, I don't need to see it. I was just wondering what it was. Was it a piece of armor? Or?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think the first thing I made was a shield.
Oh, okay.
And then from there, it grew into trying to make helmets and, you know, and then you catch the bug. And the reality of it is, if I would have just bought all the armor that I wanted and all of the weapons instead of buying tools, I'd still have money in the bank. So
right.
It's a really expensive hobby, but it's really, really rewarding. And there's something permanent about metal that I really, really like.
Right.
So there's that. I don't know.
Well, I mean, we can definitely tell it's a passion for you, and that a part of you goes into what you create, right? Because everything's a little piece of you, even if it's a little crispy. So it's amazing to see the work that you do and the armor that you wear. I really do appreciate. Okay. One last question, and we'll wrap up before we do something else. How large of a sword will that billet make that you're working on right now?
How big of a sword can I make? The biggest sword I have made is 6 feet tall. I could probably make a bigger sword. I don't know why you'd want one bigger than 6 feet tall.
Right. Alrighty, so we're going to move to the part of the show right quick. We have a few more minutes where we're going to ask some trivia questions for you. So can you hear me okay?
Yeah, give me 1 second. I'm going to turn off the forge so it doesn't burn my metal.
Okay. I hate it when I burn my metal. So.
All right. And the jet engine sound is gone.
I know.
So I can hear you much better.
Your neighbors must love you. So.
Only one of them hates me, so it's okay.
Oh, well, make it. Well, I wouldn't say make him a sword because it'd be a problem. So, so Bjorn. What happened? Oh, there you go. So Bjorn, what's the name of the game today? Oh, I don't hear Bjorn, and I didn't mute him. So I'm going to say the name of the game is You Have a Point. So, all right, so being a swordsman, I figured you would know a lot about both historical swords and legendary swords that really didn't exist other than in legends of yore. So I'm going to give you a description of a sword. I'm going to see if you can name it. You good for this?
Sure, let's try.
All righty, we'll start easy. First off is this sword is located at the National Monument in Stirling, Scotland. Big clue there. The shaft of the sword, it measures 4 feet by 4 inches in length and weighs 6 pounds. And it was used in the Battle of Stirling Bridge in 1297 in the Battle of Falkirk. Do you have any idea so far?
No idea.
It played a prominent role in a movie about a decade ago. It's the Wallace sword.
Oh, the Wallace sword, yeah.
Okay, we'll try another one. Here's a good one. This sword.
I'm going to be terrible at all of these.
That's okay. Yeah, really, we've had someone this worse. This sword was passed down from a father to his son by his mentor. It disappeared for years after a fierce hand-to-hand combat. But decades later, it was found by another knight-to-be and started another conflict, only once again to be lost to the sands of time. This is a mythical sword, a legendary sword.
Is it like an Excalibur or a...
No, it's Luke's lightsaber.
Luke's lightsaber, thanks.
Yes. Are you going to start building lightsabers? Because that would be awesome.
Nice, thank you.
Here's one. This is the sword is a famous weapon that once belonged to Edward the Confessor. And it is part of the crown jewels of the United Kingdom and is only one of 5 swords used during the coronation of the British monarch. Have any ideas?
I have no idea.
It is the Sword of Mercy.
Nice.
And who knew? Yeah, actually now it's a broken blade which is cut off short and square. I'll try one more.
Okay.
We're all learning something now. Okay. So this sword is kept in a body of water, only to magically appear in times of need. Which sword would that be?
That's got to be the Excalibur.
It is Excalibur.
Lady of the Lake and such.
Yes, it is now currently kept in a stone in front of the carousel at Disneyland.
I was going to say, I think they also have one at medieval times.
Oh, really? Wow, so you get to be king of the feast.
Yes.
All right, well, that appears to be the end of our show. Bjorn, unfortunately, just because of the technical issues, is not able to join us to ask his question, but I'm sure it would be much better than mine.
Okay.
I really do appreciate your time and sharing it. It's fascinating what you do, and like I said, the skill that you share and the talent that you have. I'm so impressed. So thank you so much. Hopefully we'll be able to get together again soon and marvel at your wares. So
thank you very much for having me.
All righty. Well, you have a good rest of your evening, and I'll bring Bjorn in right now. But you have a great night. Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye, guys.
All right. So let's bring Bjorn in. Bjorn, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can. And I was about to say, because Niccolo is such a very popular gentleman, a knight and laurel among the good ladies of Caid, that looking at his wares doesn't necessarily mean his swords. So
he is known for his dagger. So
he wears a very fine German set from time to time. Yes.
Anyway, what a lovely path you've taken us down. Normally, I have those conversations. So.
Well, since you were doing all the really important question asking things, I figured I would be the one that would then take the left-hand turn and descend into madness. So there we are.
Well, speaking of descending into madness, who's our next guest?
Funny you should mention that. So Her Ladyship Aibhilin is, although she is currently in Trimaris, she's someone that's a lot like me, traveled a great deal across the known world, and has hit many ports of call in many different kingdoms, and as such has a great deal of experience as a bard and performer, and we're very fortunate to have her with us this evening.
That's great. So you can stick around for this one. So let's bring her onto the show. And hello.
Hello. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you for hanging around. We were watching someone work on a forge. It was fascinating.
I mean, I love watching people play with swords. So
very nice. So, oh my gosh, I thought it would be nighttime where you are, but you seem to be in an encampment. That's
yes. I am coming here from southern Sweden at Double Wars. Obviously, that's where this picture was taken.
So Bjorn was saying you've lived in several kingdoms. Can you just kind of rattle some off right quick?
Yes, so I am originally from Trimaris, and from there I actually spent 6 months in Caid, and I was also in the Outlands, Ansteora, and Drakenwald before returning to Trimaris. So it's kind of all around the world.
Yeah, you took a tour. Hopefully, you didn't have to go all the way around and come back to Trimaris, though. And so, how long have you been in the SCA?
It's a little over 10 years now. You know, you kind of lose track after 10.
Right.
So
what really brought you in? Was it the opportunity to do bardic performances and stuff, or what was it?
I actually was not a singer prior to joining the SCA. I always liked Ren fairs and history, and I saw a friend back in college join a Facebook group that was called SCA, and I clicked on it, and I said, "Ooh, that looks fun. Can you take me?" And so that's how I got into it. And at my very first event was a baronial event for my barony. I had my little penny whistle because I was an instrumentalist only back then. I mundanely played the flute. And I brought my little penny whistle to the bardic competition. And the next thing I knew, I was being called up in court as the new bard of the Crossroads. And I had no idea what to do, but I said, "Oh, it looks like people usually sing in the SCA. I guess I should start singing."
Huh. No pressure there, right? So
Yeah.
So I believe you're going to perform 2 pieces for us tonight. Is that correct?
Yes, I have a period piece and then a more modern SCA composition of my own writing, because I really like to dabble in both sides of the SCA. I do performing arts in general, theater included, so I really like to be able to do both the period pieces and the more modern SCA.
Great. Well, what can you tell us about the first piece for tonight?
So the first piece I'll be doing is one of the Cantigas de Santa Maria. It's number 42. And all of the Cantigas de Santa Maria are from the 13th century, and they are praising Mary. But they're all lovely pieces, and they sound great with harp, which is what I play in the SCA. So,
Okay. Well, I turn the floor over to you for this first piece.
All right. It'd help if I was in the right key, right?
Wow, that was beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Lost my earpiece there for a second.
Sure. So did you play the harp before coming into the SCA, or did you pick that up new?
I picked it up when I joined the SCA a couple years ago now, about 6 years. I just happened to go into a music shop and there was a harp and I walked out with it. But I'd been interested in learning harp for many years in the SCA. So I finally picked it up.
That's awesome. So what's your second piece you're performing this evening?
So my next piece is a piece that I wrote actually as a competition song for the Gulf Wars Bardic competition. The theme for that year was Why I Fight. And I am not, nor have I ever been a fighter. But my persona, if you can't tell, is Trostfrau, which is the women who followed the Landsknecht mercenary armies. And most of the women in those armies would have served other roles to support the army, such as doing the cooking or being basically a nurse. Some were actually musicians as well. And so I wanted to write something from my perspective that I might have done as my persona, but also that reflected what I did do in the SCA, which was, I started out in the SCA doing a lot of water bearing because I wanted to support the fighters. And so I wanted to write a song that was about what the women can do for the war effort that is not necessarily fighting and how it's just as much part of the battle.
Oh, that's great. So the floor is yours for the second piece. Thank you.
When I was young, my lullaby was the sound of sword and shield, the washing woman's chatter and the cook fire's crackling flame. When I could walk, I earned my keep beside the battlefield. At my mother's side, we tended soldiers caught by archers' aim. I grew up strong, a camp woman, and battled every day to save the soldiers' lives. 'Twas I that kept the reaper at bay. I may not fight with axe or steel or wear armor on the field. You may not think I fight, but my own weapons do I wield. I watch the men fall on the field and pray that they will stay alive until I reach their side and their lives I can save. I may look calm upon the field, but I am filled with rage, for I fight to keep your men alive, and that's the war I wage. As light glints off the dew-touched grass, we rise to start the day. While soldiers slowly wake, the women bustle through the tents. Our work begins at dawn to keep the camps from disarray. A sisterhood of care our working women represent. For men can only fight because the women do the chores. For soldiers win the battle, but the women win the wars. I may not fight with axe or steel or wear armor on the field. You may not think I fight, but my own weapons do I wield. I watch the men fall on the field and pray that they will stay alive until I reach their side and their lives I can save. I may look calm upon the field, but I am filled with rage, for I fight to keep your men alive, and that's the war I wage. Some look at me and scoff and say I have no worthwhile place, that women of the camps have just one service we fulfill. But I live each day with honor, and I serve the war with grace. With bandages and practice care, I ply my wartime skills. When men fall down upon the field, I rush to give them aid. It's through my knowledge of my craft that all their lives are saved. I may not fight with axe or steel or wear armor on the field. You may not think I fight, but my own weapons do I wield. I watch the men fall on the field and pray that they will stay alive until I reach their side and their lives I can save. I may look calm upon the field, but I am filled with rage, for I fight to keep your men alive, and that's the war I wage. When battle calls us all to war, I join the rush to fight. With my supplies upon my back, I hurry to the field. I work all through the battle and long into the night. I fight all day to save your lives, and I will never yield. For though I don't use arrows or throw a blow of steel. I fight to keep your men alive. The war I wage is real. I may not fight with axe or steel or wear armor on the field. You may not think I fight, but my own weapons do I wield. I watch the men fall on the field and pray that they will stay alive until I reach their side and their lives I can save. I may look calm upon the field, but I am filled with rage, for I fight to keep your men alive, and that's the war I wage. Yes, I fight to keep your men alive, and that's the war I wage.
That was awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks so much
I think Warren wants to say something. I'm going to bring him in right quick. He'll be here. And we're going to do this weird CNN look. Here we go. Oh, it's our live from Caid sandwich.
I just thought that was lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
I'm so happy to be here and share.
Well, as we've said to several performers, I know it's super challenging to perform to a big piece of glass. As
Yes.
But it didn't hold you back at all. Thank you so much for coming on. I know it's late. Well, it's not that late, but it's still late for you on the East Coast. So, again, hopefully we'll be able to see you soon and see you perform live sometime. If we're out, either we're there or you're here. So. Oh, she muted herself.
I just totally lost my audio. So I
Can you hear me now?
Oh wait, I got it back.
Oh, you do that. I didn't do that. So no one gets a drink on that one. So anyway, oh, she did it again. Whatever you're doing, you're muting yourself.
Because now I'm on my speakers. I didn't want there to be feedback.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you so much. Have a great evening. I look forward to the opportunity to meet you in person. So
I look forward to someday seeing you all when we can meet again in person.
all righty. You have a great evening.
Thanks so
Thank
much
you
for
again,
having me.
Alicia. Thank
Good
you.
night. I've meant to send her away. Here we go. There we go. Hi. That was amazing.
It's always nice to hear, because that is the sort of thing that I like to do. I like to do period music, but I also like to write things that are SCA inspired, and I think that that's a nice balance. That's what bards do, as opposed to people who are just period or just do filk. And it's nice to have that kind of balance. And she was wonderful.
Yes, and she actually has a passion in the SCA that doesn't result in her catching herself on fire. So that's the plus. So
To be fair, Nick still looked like everything was intact. And as you said, he did have his eyebrows. So
that's a plus.
he must not set himself on fire that often anymore.
Right.
I think there's a learning curve involved at some point. If you lose a limb, you might need to reassess.
I'll give you that. So I think that wraps up our show tonight. That's who do we have for next week? I know. Do you?
Well, I'm hoping you're telling us.
Well, we'll be talking to the scribe Armarius of the Kingdom of Caid. That'd be Master Martin Fitzjames.
Oh, wonderful.
What's involved with that? If you would like some scrolls, talk about the large and talented crew of people that are making the scrolls. Should be great. And who do we have for bardic entertainment?
Well, we have, again, to the north, from the Mists, Viscountess Thorsdaughter will be joining us. She is a former Bard of the West, former Princess of the Mists, and just a truly phenomenal performer. And we're very fortunate to have her with us next week.
Well, great. It sounds like we have a good show. Everyone out there, have a great week. And be sure to join us next week when, once again, we will be live from Caid. We'll see you
Bye,
then.
everybody.